You know that creepy, dusty mannequin hanging in the corner of the Carnival Funhouse? The one with the weirdly realistic grimace? Yeah, you might want to take a closer look. Because for years, at an amusement park in California, that creepy prop wasn't a prop at all. It was a real, mummified human corpse. Seriously. For 65 years, the body of a failed train robber named Elmer McCurdy went on the wildest post-mortem road trip in history. After he was shot by police in 1911, nobody claimed his body. So the undertaker, being a savvy businessman, embalmed him with arsenic, propped him up in the corner, and charged people a nickel to see the bandit who wouldn't give up. From there, Elmer was sold to a wax museum, then to a traveling circus, then to a haunted house. He was painted with glow-in-the-dark paint, dressed up, and hung from a noose. Thousands of people walked by, took pictures, maybe even poked him for a laugh, all while this dude was just chilling. Literally. The party finally ended in 1976 on the set of The $6 Million Man. A poor, unsuspecting crew member went to move what he thought was just a prop, and Elmer's arm snapped right off, revealing actual human bone. Imagine being that guy. You go to work to film a TV show about a bionic man, and you end up discovering a real-life mummy who's had a more active social life than you have. But hey, a dead body hiding in plain sight is one thing. What about a living, breathing urban legend who's actively trying to ruin your date night? Welcome to Fairfax County, Virginia, home of the Bunnyman Bridge. The legend says an asylum bus crashed back in the day, and one patient escaped. Soon after, skinned bunnies started showing up hanging from a bridge. Fast forward to 1970, an Air Force cadet and his fiancée are parked near that same bridge, probably doing, whatever people did in cars in 1970. Suddenly, a figure in a white bunny suit holding an axe runs out of the woods, screams at them for trespassing, and hurls the axe right into their car window. Now, you might be thinking, a bunny suit? That's not scary. That's adorable. But I ask you this, have you ever had an axe thrown at your head by a 6-foot-tall Eastern nightmare? 10 days later, the bunny man struck again, this time chopping up the porch of an unfinished house while yelling at a security guard. Police investigated over 50 sightings, but the guy was never caught. He just vanished, leaving behind a shattered car window and a very good reason to never ever park near a creepy bridge again. Of course, not every boogeyman is out to get you. Sometimes the monster is just a guy trying to take a walk. In Pennsylvania, they called him the Green Man, or Charlie No-Face. His real name was Raymond Robinson. As a kid, he suffered a horrific electrical accident that destroyed his face. He lost his eyes, his nose, and an arm. Because of his appearance, he only went out for walks late at night, along a quiet country road, so he wouldn't frighten anyone. The irony is, he ended up scaring people more. Imagine driving down a dark road and your headlights catch a figure with a glowing, featureless face. People were terrified. But the locals who actually stopped and talked to him, they found a kind, intelligent man who just wanted some fresh air. Teenagers would bring him beer and cigarettes and just hang out. He wasn't a monster, he was just a man dealt a terrible hand, who accidentally became a local legend. Speaking of things you don't expect to find, let's talk about the absolute worst possible surprise at a motel. We've all heard the story. Someone checks into a room that smells awful, and it turns out there's a dead body under the mattress. It sounds like a classic scary story to tell around a campfire, right? Except, it's happened. Multiple times. The most famous case was in Atlantic City in 1999. Guests in room 112 kept complaining about a foul smell. The motel staff, probably thinking it was just backed up plumbing or old seafood, just sprayed some air freshener and changed the sheets. For days, different people slept in that bed just inches above a decomposing body hidden in the box spring. It's like a real-life 5-star Yelp review from hell. Great location, terrible smell, bed was a little lumpy for some reason. 1 star. Okay, finding a dead body in your hotel room is nightmare fuel. But what if the person hiding in your house is still alive? In 1986, a family in Massachusetts noticed things were off. Food would go missing, objects would be moved, they'd hear strange noises. They probably thought it was a ghost. Nope, it was a guy named Daniel LaPlante, who had been secretly living inside their walls for weeks. He'd crawl out when they were gone, eat their food, and watch them through tiny holes he'd drilled. In another case in Japan, a man discovered a homeless woman had been living in the top of his closet for an entire year. She had everything neatly arranged up there. Imagine that. You're not being haunted. You just have a very, very quiet roommate who doesn't pay rent. Now, most of these stories are about people who didn't want to be found. But what about a guy who seemed to be putting on a show? For a decade in the Swiss woods, locals would see a mysterious figure they called Liloon. This guy walked around in a full vintage military gas mask and a heavy camouflage coat every single day. He never spoke, never bothered anyone, just walked. He became a local celebrity. People took photos of him from a distance. Then one day in 2013, his entire outfit was found neatly folded in the forest with a note. He basically said that with all the new attention, it just wasn't fun anymore. He just rage quit being a cryptid. But sometimes the legend and the reality are a perfect, horrifying match. On Staten Island, kids grew up with the story of Cropsey, an escaped mental patient with a hook for a hand who snatched children from the woods around the old Willowbrook Mental Institution. It was the ultimate boogeyman story. But Cropsey was real. His name was Andre Rand, and he was a former orderly at the real, notoriously awful Willowbrook Asylum. After it closed, he lived in the abandoned tunnels beneath it and did exactly what the legend said. He preyed on vulnerable children, becoming the literal monster from the campfire stories. And finally, to prove the universe is just plain weird, let's talk about the toxic lady. The legend says a woman was brought into a hospital, and when they drew her blood, toxic fumes filled the room, causing the doctors and nurses to collapse. The reality? In 1994, a woman named Gloria Ramirez was rushed to an ER. Her body had an oily sheen, and her blood smelled like ammonia. As the nurses treated her, they started getting dizzy, fainting, and having trouble breathing. 23 staff members got sick. The emergency room had to be evacuated by a hazmat team. The most likely theory is that a home remedy cream she was using for cancer pain had a bizarre chemical reaction inside her failing body, turning her into a temporary, tragic, and very real biohazard. From a well-traveled corpse to a man in a bunny suit, the line between a scary story and a news headline is way, way thinner than you think. The world is a weird place, and sometimes the truth is far stranger and a lot more terrifying than any story you could ever make up. So, what's the creepiest urban legend you've ever heard? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable history.